My name is Bill, and I'm a T5 paraplegic, and it was a result of a car accident in 1974 as a high school senior, and rolled the Volkswagen Bug. And my sister's with me, and fortunately she was okay. And so it's been 41 and a half years. I'm a T5 paraplegic, which is about here complete. Is a fractured spine. I did my inpatient rehab. Well, I had the good fortune, looking back and retrospectively, I was the son of a retired military officer. So when I was initially hurt in a small town of Texas, I was literally air vac to Fort Sam Houston and San Antonio, which this is right after the Vietnam War, but there, our serious engagement in the Vietnam War, but there's quite a bit of SCI and other injuries, traumatic brain injuries together. So I was put into a military hospital in a ward situation. If you can picture those from the movies, big rooms with lots of beds, and I was literally in that. Well, I was a high school senior at the time of my accident, and I was, even in the hospital, I was able to finish my high school diploma by finishing up a few papers, a few classes kind of remotely, and teachers and classmates were very helpful to come and help me through that last process. At the end of the summer, about that time, I'd been through the hospital, through the rehab, and I, of course, planned to go to college and decided, why not? I had planned to go away to school, but the university that was in my hometown was Texas A&M University. So I decided to go locally, again, close to family and friends. I did move into the dorms. That was a big deal. I didn't want to, I was ready to move on, despite this new thing in my world. So here I was, 8 months post-injury, and I was starting college as a freshman. And I ended up going to school here in the state of Washington at Evergreen State College, and taking my degree there. The remainder of my career has kind of been interesting. I started out with a love of photography, originally as fine art, and then as a business. And so after a couple of years of study, in Los Angeles, I moved to New York, where I worked professionally in that field for a period of 6 years. And then, like a lot of New Yorkers, you kind of burn out in life. And life in a wheelchair in New York is a challenge. Much better now, but 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it's a big city, lots of buildings with few elevators and lots of stairs and no curb cuts at that time. Now it's a lot better, but it was tough to live in. And I decided to return to the Northwest. So I've been here in Seattle for 25 years. Started a different career path and taking my business acumen and skills and working as an accountant, getting my CPA, and then working in central administration at the University of Washington, which is where I continue to work. I'm currently the Chief Financial Officer for the Central IT Department for campus. Fortunately, the line of work that I'm currently in as an accountant, a financial manager, administrator, if you will, is fairly your conventional office setup. So aging hasn't really impacted me too much on that. I am in a job where I go to lots of meetings and I go around campus, which is at the University of Washington, is a fairly large physical area. So earlier in my career here at the University of Washington, I could go longer distances and up hills and around campus without a problem. Now that I'm more aware that it's harder, so I tend to drive a lot more. So the in and out of a car. So I could see at some point needing to do less of that. Unfortunately, the job I'm currently in requires a fair amount of that. And I probably overcompensate because I know I could probably pick up the phone and people would come to me, but I don't want to be that person, And so I always make a point of, especially if it's a customer, if you will, or somebody I need something from, I want to go to them and not drive that. I've been married for 21 years. I was very fortunate. She had a 14-year-old son at the time and a dog, both of which I had hoped to have in my life at some point, children and pets, but as a single person going through things, I hadn't had either of those. And my 14-year-old son, even despite 4 years of rocky adolescence, got through that. We have a great relationship. He's in his mid-30s now, works at Microsoft, married, and has a child. So all of a sudden, I'm a grandfather. My granddaughter's 5 years old. And that's been a real delight. I've always been around children with friends and family and so on, but I've never been that close to an individual to see them grow from infant, through these stages. And what's interesting in terms of a disability to wheelchair, as you can imagine, out in public, oftentimes you get kids kind of like, what's that, you know, and saying what their parents think are inappropriate things. Of course, I look at it as natural curiosity. You know, why are you in that thing? What hurts? You know, that, I mean, how did you hurt yourself? Or why, you know, those kinds of things. And of course, most parents think, shh, you know, don't do that, but it's natural, and I always stop and respond to that. But with my granddaughter, of course, she's known nothing different than her grandfather's in a wheelchair, and that's just what it is, you know. So it's interesting. I can see her sometimes with her friends trying to explain. I mean, again, at 5 years old, not a huge vocabulary, but her, you know, talking to her, whispering to her friends, well, he's doing that because, like that. But anyway, in terms of family life, I've been very fortunate to have them, and they live locally, which is helpful to be able to spend time. How have peers helped me during various times in my life with SCI? You know, early when I was injured, I was in a situation where we were around other people with injuries and in a rehab center with a lot of not only peers with injuries, but with staff that was very focused on how to help that. And that was very, very helpful getting out of the gate, learning how to cope and do changes. Then I think it's fair to say you went through a long period of where you didn't have those peers, either because you were in a lifestyle situation where they weren't around, or to be fair, you didn't want to be one of them. You know, there was at college there's a group about students concerned for the handicapped, and they all come together. I didn't see myself that way. I didn't want to be in that group. So if anything, I shied away from that. And without major health issues for many years, you know, other than occasionally happen to come across somebody, didn't have much of a peer. And then, of course, this is before the internet, so there wasn't that option either. So occasionally I would meet somebody and we would swap notes, so to speak, but not too often. Then later in life, especially being in a community where it's available, I started taking more advantage of that. And as questions came up, especially around aging, I thought that was a good community. And also learning this, as I was saying, about being more proactive in your healthcare. Here are lots of resources. People have had similar situations, different situations, different problems. Let's talk about it. And that, I think, has been very helpful. I've also, in a couple of occasions, I've been able to be a peer to somebody with an early injury with lots of questions, and that can be a challenge in itself. But I've done that on several occasions, either through the University of Washington's program or just friend of a friend. You know, somebody got hurt. He's in rehab now. He's got lots of questions. His wife's got even more questions. Would you mind talking with him? And of course, I'm glad to do that, and have had that. And so anyway, I think I'm also. Well, anyway, the opportunities have now risen to both to be a participant and an advocate in both those things, and I think it's helped a lot, as well as just the internet community, a number of forums where you can share ideas or questions. And as I look towards aging, I'm very cognizant of wanting to remain independent. At the same time, there's going to be a time where I will need more help. And my wife is approximately my age. She has her own health issues, you know. Just this last week, she had a knee problem, and she's, you know, is having a hard time walking a little bit. And things that she would do for me, like push me up that extra little hill or brace my chair, it's got to think about it. And I'm cognizant of that too. I want to be very careful. But, and I also, in terms of long-range planning, I'm not one of those people afraid of a facility at the right time, in the right place. And I'm not going to be the person that's going to try to stay in my home and depend upon my wife or other family to be there and support, because I've seen that often, I mean, over and over, when somebody gets in that situation, it really it's disruptive to their relationship, and I want to avoid that. So we're thinking long term in terms of, you know, the next phase, and I don't know, not like it's in the next few years, but at some point we'll need to move to that retirement center, or a retirement center with an assisted facility available. So it's more you transition to each phase, but very cognizant of the person that, my wife that is with me, to not overburden her, and that we go into these, and we make decisions together. I often get the question of have you considered using a power wheelchair? And I can think back to when I was first injured, and there were power wheelchairs at that time, and even when I was first hurt and getting in a wheelchair, I thought, oh, I want one of those cool things that moves really fast. Well, relatively quickly I realized that's not a good idea. One, you need to have exercise. You need to have movement. You need to be out there, as well as just logistical things of getting that thing in a car or batteries dying. I mean, so quickly, I did that. But throughout the years, people have suggested that, mostly out of not knowing, you know. They look at my chair and say, well, why don't you have a power one? Wouldn't that be easier? And I explain, no, it's actually just the opposite. It's going to more of a health detriment than anything. I imagine there will be a time where I'll need one. And that's a little scary, but again, it's out there on the horizon. And when the time's right, then I think they're great tools, and it'll be important to have and to use. I've seen, you know, the world of technology, if you will, or the tools that you have available have changed dramatically. You know, in over 40 years, I feel like I've seen the evolution of the modern wheelchair. In 1974, there was a wheelchair company called Everest & Jennings that had 90% of the market, and there was no choice. You got one of the chairs, and because of the Vietnam era and post-Vietnam, they realized the classic clunky institutional wheelchair wasn't enough, and they designed their first more portable modern wheelchair. And of course, so I went into that. Looking back, it looks antiquated and big and clunky, but at the time it was what they had. And over the next literally 40 years, I've seen them change quite a bit. The advent of what they call the rigid, most of them were folding at that time, the rigid chair, the ultra-light materials, the titanium, the ergonomics have all changed over this period of time. But hand in hand with the change of technology is a change of, not change, but the access to healthcare professionals that can help point you in the right direction. You know, and I think when you're in a long-time injury, especially if you're relatively stable or healthy, you don't have a lot of health issues, you don't go to the doctors a lot, you don't have access to information, you tend to just do what you always do, you know, and realize there's been a change. I've seen a lot of changes in how they treat SCI-related things like bladder, bowels, skin care, wheelchair mechanics, is all changed as people have learned more. And if you're not in tune with that, you're still thinking about, well, this is what they told me in the hospital 40 years ago, so I still do it the same way. Well, things have changed. And so I think it's real important to be out there and to build up a healthcare network where you're trying to get that new information. Here in Seattle, we're very fortunate to have at the University of Washington, the rehab medicine and SCI forums and peer groups that have been helpful in sharing that. And that is also in line with the change in access to information because of technology, you know, the internet. You know, before you were relying on your healthcare provider, maybe a few friends in the community, and that was it. Now the world's open to you, and it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's so much information, and you need to sift through it. But it is out there. What are the things I can do to help think about longevity or aging in place? A lot of it has to do with being very proactive about your own health care. We're very fortunate, I'm very fortunate to live in a city with a modern medical center and a rehab department and a community that's there for you, with a lot of variety of healthcare professionals. However, it's a big world and people are busy, and I have one of the best rehab doctors in the country. However, it takes 6 months to get to see her, and when you get to see her, you've got 15, 20 minutes. I mean, always patient, always giving you the time you need, but if you have an issue you need recurring follow-up, it's just harder. And you're one of hundreds of patients, so you're not getting that real thing. Same with urologists or any of the specialists. You get the best care, but it's still pretty generic. So you have to be very proactive in asking the right questions or seeking other healthcare providers to supplement that. And again, in this age of information availability, there's a lot out there, but it's also identifying a particular physical therapist that's worked really well or has a very good experience and saying, I want to see that person, or building an ongoing relationship with them. Okay, I'm healthy now, but when that shoulder problem came up, I know who to call. And that similarly with a urologist, you know, months to get in to see the urologist, and having a reoccurring UTI issue that they will give you the standard information. Here's what you need to do. You need to be better about doing it. Well, I still had them. Working with through that office, a physician assistant. All of a sudden, I'm a lot more available, a lot more in tune with SCI and say, try this. Okay, it didn't work, try this. So that kind of thing that really came up with a solution that has worked out very well. So again, it's just being very proactive and not just saying, accepting an answer or that. I guess it's just over time, just identifying individuals that have been helpful or particularly knowledgeable or accessible in terms of getting to. And I guess it's just over time, meeting those individuals that have been particularly helpful and maintaining that relationship with them over time, and a little bit of word of mouth. As the peer group grows larger, through either through the SI forum or SI communities or the internet, you'll be talking to people and say, oh, so-and-so helped me, or so-and-so helped put me in the right direction. And I sometimes smile because I'll be in a situation with other folks with SCI, and we'll be talking about somebody, and all of a sudden we all know the same person, you know? And the same physical therapist who's kind of a specialist in this area, and everybody says, oh yeah, I've been to her, or I just saw her, or that kind of thing, and you realize there's a reason for that. Less so with other specialties like urology or others, but I think it's just important just to be proactive about your own health care. I was hurt in the 70s, and a few years before that, you know, the baby boomer generation is really the first generation with SCI issues that are living to this point. I remember when I was in 1974, you know, when the doctors are talking to my parents and they're saying, well, his lifespan is going to be much less. That's just the way it is because of the century, and history shows, you know, maybe it'll be great if he can live into his 40s or 50s. And, you know, of course, at 17, you're not worried about that. You're worried about next year and the year after that. But I think back about that, and they really had no basis for saying that other than at that point in time, you know, looking at history. So I often will talk to my healthcare specialist about aging. More recently, last 6 months, I've been doing yoga, adaptive yoga, which is really great. At the most recent SCA summit that was held at the University of Washington this past summer, there was a lot of adaptive sports were presented, including adaptive yoga. Now, the person in my late 50s, I'm going in, I'm seeing cycling, I'm seeing wheelchair tennis, I'm seeing a lot of things that sound like fun, but as I'm getting older, that's not as exciting to me as something like yoga. And thinking about long-term aging is I want something gentler on the body, but it's still healthy and exercising. And so I took advantage of through that experience of attending an adaptive yoga class that then extended to working more closely with that instructor who now on a biweekly basis, my wife and I attend with another couple. A gentleman had a post-stroke and his wife, and we've been doing that. And it's been really good. And again, that's a lot of stretching, a lot of things, but it's also a lot of mindfulness as a part of it, which I think has been very, very good. What advice would I give to someone 2 or 3 years in a wheelchair or with an SCI injury, or advice to my younger self, if you will? Looking back, I think it depends on your age, but I think if somebody in their teens or early 20s or mid-20s, after their initial acceptance of their situation or becoming independent or getting through just the basic lifestyle issues, you're young, you're looking ahead. I think looking back at myself or others, I could see there's a tendency to overcompensate. I want to be independent, I want to be strong, I want to go out and do those things that I shouldn't be doing because I don't see myself in a wheelchair, I see myself as a different type of person. So you may take risks or overuse your body in ways that you shouldn't. And I would just say, slow down. Of course you want to be independent, but think through it and don't do things you shouldn't do. But I've met individuals that get that big pickup truck and they're literally climbing into it, and you think, fine, that's great, it looks cool, it feels good, but you are really taking a toll on your shoulders that you're going to pay for in 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So it's not unlike any older person looking at youth and saying, don't take too many risks, just be a little bit smarter. I think as we're talking about life with SCI, it's a little bit different. Your body mechanics are different. Just be aware of your health, your shoulders, your skin, all those things that I'm okay, I'm fine today, but you know, it takes its toll. It's not unlike the analogy of always wear sunscreen. You know, it's really hard to get a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old to wear sunscreen because they look great and they're going to be fine and that. But 20 years down the road, you're paying that price. And it's the same with shoulders or a lot of physical issues. You know, if you overuse your body or abuse it, it's gonna come back to haunt you. And so be very thoughtful and be very careful about those kinds of things. Looking back, in a lot of it, we're at a very fortunate time where we have access to a lot more information via the internet, and in the recognition that peer groups through organizations like the University of Washington or others present is take advantage of those. You are going to be constantly coming up with day-to-day issues or questions you have that, yes, you want to talk to your healthcare provider, but also you want to talk to a peer group. How do you deal with this bowel issue? How do you deal with I want to buy a new car and I'm not sure what to do, you know, where to go, or what is your advice? Take advantage of all of that. And looking back, I would have loved to have had that opportunity at different times in my life. And I feel very fortunate that it's available now. And especially as I'm looking at aging issues, there's peers. When I was asked, what advice do you have to your younger self? A couple, in addition to being careful about your shoulders and overusing them or wearing them out, so to speak. A couple other issues. One is weight management and skincare. So weight management, like any person, when you're younger, your metabolism is great. You can eat anything. You eat crap and you'll be fine. And then as you get older, it's a little harder. What I've come to be aware of with SCI, it's harder to lose weight than the general population. So every pound that you put on as a younger person or middle-aged person is going to be really hard to get off later. Doesn't matter what diet you're on or what health regimen, just your physical world is different and it's much harder. So my advice is to be more careful about your diet earlier in your life because it'll pay off. And skincare, I probably can't underestimate enough how important that is. When I think about issues with my shoulders and impacting my independence, I think about pressure sores the same way. I've been very fortunate. I've had a few scares or few opportunities where I've got early warning signs where I've taken care of it. But I think if I had a really bad decubiti ulcer, I would be a lot less independent, more time in bed, more time not sitting. So as a result, I try to be very proactive on that. And a lot of it's common sense, but a very simple one is having the right wheelchair cushion. And there would be times, again, in my youth where it wasn't available, or I'd sit for long periods of time on the ground, and I knew that wasn't the right thing, but it didn't bother me, so I'd keep at it. I think just being aware of those things, and as well as diet that helps your skin, that impacts your skin care, lotions, other things like that. But just being aware of your body. But my best form of exercise is having a dog that needs to be walked. And I have a wonderful dog. As I mentioned earlier, when I came to a relationship with my wife, she had a dog, which I came to be my dog, and we've had, now we're in our third, just generationally in our third dog. Gosh, it's dark and it's raining outside. I still have to take the dog for a walk. Might be a little shorter if it's raining hard, but I still have to get out. And when we were looking to buy a home a number of years ago, walkability or strollability, if you will, was very important, and need to be able to not live on a hill where you have to get in your car to go anywhere, that you can go down the block, take your dog for a walk. And now I'm taking my grandchild for a walk, and that's really important. And it's a neighborhood that is fortunate to have some hills, but not too many, because you want some, because you want that challenge, that cardiovascular help, but not one that's undoable. But again, having that dog, an opportunity to get out and get exercise is probably my best form of exercise. And now, keeping up with a 5-year-old, isn't that my next one? She's running down the street a little faster than I am.